What's up, guys? Today we got a special one because I got a package in the mail that contained a 9900K. But it was a 9900K that is supposedly no longer working because of a failed D-lid. This is one of my patrons. This is from Ian. So thank you very much, Ian, for sending this over. But I wanted to take a look at it and see if we could figure out what exactly happened and maybe talk about why you don't really want to D-lid a chip like a 9900K. So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is just take this thing out of the box. We're going to throw it onto my test bench, which I know works because I just took a 9900K out of it myself, and see what happens. I mean, maybe it's possible that Ian had a bad motherboard or something like that. I don't know, and we'll see what happens with this. But then we're going to take a closer look at it if it doesn't work and try to figure out what went wrong. Here it is still in the packaging. I wrote D-lid on it just so I wouldn't get confused with the other 9900Ks I have, but just looking at it in here, I mean, it looks perfectly normal, I guess, but the heat spreader is actually no longer attached. So if we open this up and get in here, see, this thing just pops right off, and we're gonna get some close-ups of this in a second. But here is our chip, all de-lidded, and let's pop it in here. This is my 9900K test bench with a Z390 RS Master. I just took this chip out of there, so we know that it works, and we'll see what happens. Moment of truth. Here we go. Things lit up. Fans are spinning. Oh, we got a light on our motherboard. Let's see if this will focus in here, so that we can show you what exactly that light means. CPU. That is the CPU light, and it is staying lit, and we have nothing right now outputting. So with this still saying CPU, I think that we got a problem. So I'm gonna let this maybe cycle a couple times, if it will, which it actually doesn't even look like it is cycling. But I'll let this run for a minute or two and see if anything happens, but if not, we're gonna take the next steps. So that didn't work. I could not get this to boot or do anything, and that CPU light stayed on. So I cleaned off some kind of rogue liquid metal, and I tried it again. There was some liquid metal, I'll overlay some B-roll that I took of it, but there was the very small amount of liquid metal. I guess when he had de-lidded this, he tried to put it back together with liquid metal, and there was just a little residue around the die itself, and then over towards these contacts over here. So I just cleaned it up, tried it again, and again, nothing. So we got to try to figure out what exactly is going on here, because there's no SMDs on here that are missing. This isn't like an X299 chip where there are SMDs all around the die. The 9900K doesn't have any of that on the substrate, so there was nothing to like knock off. The most thing that I was worried about was maybe shorting some of these contact points somehow with the liquid metal, and that doesn't appear to be what was going on. So I turned to the back side, and here is the back of the chip. Now, I have obviously some better B-roll of this, which I, again, will overlay. But in looking at it, just my initial glance, I didn't notice anything wrong. But then my gaze came down here to this corner, and I did definitely notice that there was a problem. So one of the contacts down here, it's not scratched, it's not covered in paste, it's actually a hole. It's kind of dinged in, like right on the pad. There was some pressure or a sharp object, or this was dropped, or something happened when you clamp this, when Ian clamped this into the de-lidding tool, where there was something that was down here that completely destroyed one of these contact pads. And I think that must be what's going on here, because I don't see anything else physically wrong with the chip. And I assume that he had tested it before he tried to de-lid it. So it must have happened during the de-lidding process. So there we go. I think we've solved it, and because it actually is physical damage and not like something that I could, you know, solder back on or clean off or anything like that, I don't think there's any recovering this chip. Ian, I will send this back to you if you want it, but I don't think that there's any saving it at all. And that's one of the reasons that I don't recommend delitting 9900Ks. These are soldered chips, so there's a lot of effort required to get these IHSs off. If you look at the back side of this thing, it's covered in solder, because even though, you know, he did a good job of removing it, actually it's pretty smooth, but you could see where the solder was affixed. And, you know, in order to get it off, you have to worry about sanding, you have to use solder removal, and just physically separating the die from the IHS requires a lot of force, and you could easily break something even if you do everything right. So in this case, it looks like right down here is where we had that issue, but it wasn't even anything to do with the physical separation of the substrate from the IHS. It was maybe a little particle of something that was sitting down in the delitting tool. Let me get my delitting tool so I can show you what I mean. Alright, so here is my delitter for 1150X chips. I assume you use something similar, but they all work on the same principle, where you're applying force, a lateral force, to the heat spreader in order to separate it from the substrate. So what happens is the chip goes in here. At the time it'll have the IHS attached to it. Yeah, this is exactly how it looks normally. But then you have this piece here, which has this little lip on the side. So when you slide this in like this with one hand, which is impossible to do, there we go. So when you slide this in, and then you use this screw to screw into this piece and bring them together and apply force, it'll apply lateral pressure to the IHS and detach it from the silicone that's holding it to the substrate. But because of how tight the tolerances are on these units, that means that as this piece is sliding over, there's not only lateral pressure being put on, but there's also vertical pressure. So if there was some kind of particle or something down there in your delitter, as this was sitting in there, you could very easily have damaged the bottom pad, the contact pad, by doing it that way. There it is. And that may be what happened. I think we solved the mystery, Ian. I am sorry to say. So Ian, I am sorry to say, but I think your little buddy here is done. But if you want it back, like I said, let me know. I will send this back to you. You could use it as some kind of a souvenir if you'd like. But that's it, guys. Just a really quick video. I wanted to see if we could figure out what happened to that 9900K and why it's not such a great idea to try to delit them if, you know, maybe it's your first time delitting. There's a lot that goes into it and a lot that can go wrong, unfortunately, especially when you're dealing with a soldered chip. So that's it. More videos coming soon. We got the Show Me Your Rig season finale coming right up. And stay tuned. Get subscribed if you're not already. And I'll see you guys next time.